Hey everybody, welcome back to another 10-minute Marvel video. I'm Petter, and today we're continuing with our Fantastic Four love with talking about the two post-credit scenes, and in particular, one of them. Now, I had suspected and kind of thought that, alright, we're likely to get our main post-credit scene, like the big one, at the very end. Marvel was like, no, we're going to do it as the mid-credit scene and then do a lighter, sillier one at the very end. So we're going to talk about both of them. Spoilers ahead, of course. No way to talk about these without talking about spoilers. If you want to hear about the movie itself, I'm not going to be touching on a ton of the movie, minus a couple one key point kind of in the movie. So if you want to hear about the movie itself and non-spoiler thoughts, check out the video I put up yesterday where I did kind of my first impression review right after we saw it in theaters. So moving into spoilers now. Spoilers. You have been warned. Spoilers. Okay, if you're still here, I'm assuming you're fine with spoilers. But the first post-credit scene, and we're going to talk about them in reverse order, the light fun one was just the intro to the animated Fantastic Four show. And I love that fact that there is an animated Fantastic Four show in the series, or in the movie. That's actually where the clobberin' time catchphrase comes in. It's not until the third act when Ben Grimm says it. And I also like that it seems to be based off of some of reality. So you had characters like Mole Man and Red Ghost and his monkeys, Mad Thinker, the Magician, or is it the Wizard? The Wizard, in there. But there was one that stood out as, it's not as big as a normal Sentinel, but that is definitely the look of a Sentinel in there. Now, is that something that's just created for the show and there are not Sentinels in this world? I suspect that's the case. This doesn't seem like an MCU or Earth timeline that needs Sentinels around, or that Sentinels like have defeated and taken care of all the X-Men or anything like that. It really seems like that was just a stylistic design choice that they made for the show, at least in universe. Obviously, for us out of universe, that is a tease of, yes, the Fantastic Four are not Fantastic Four are coming, but the X-Men are coming, and it's going to be sooner rather than later in Doomsday. We're going to have some of them show up there from the old ones, and shortly after Secret Wars, we're going to have our new X-Men team. But that one's really just a fun, kind of goofy little show clip. There's nothing phenomenal about that one. It's just enjoyable. And you know what? That works. I mean, the classic example of that is the shawarma eating in the Avengers movie. So then, let's talk about the mid-credit scene one. And this one, I find actually pretty cool, pretty interesting. The fact that this one was filmed by the Russos. And it was filmed by the Russos 4 years after the events of Fantastic Four First Steps. Franklin is now 4.5, almost 5, kind of in that range, and Sue is reading him a story. He asks for one of his favorite stories. Origin of Species, oddly enough, is one of those that it could have been, but that wasn't the one that he wanted this time. He wanted a different one. But Sue senses that something is off. Something has occurred, and she goes back to Franklin, ready to deal with whatever it is, and it is the hooded Doctor Doom with mask off in hand. Now, we don't see the face, the hood, everything is framed, so you can't even see the build. Is this Robert Downey Jr.? Who knows? Honestly, probably not, because it's probably cheaper to have, let's say, RDJ's stunt double do it, because you would have to pay RDJ for being in the Fantastic Four, and I don't think they really want to spend that large sum of money. Or it could be that it was built in as part of like his contract for Doomsday. But it does now kind of call back to some things from the movie. When we get the starting montage in the movie and Sue is brokering peace in the Future Foundation, we see it pan past empty seats for the nation of Latveria. And in fact, we see those empty seats multiple times when dealing with the Future Foundation, this sort of UN collective, like, knowledge sharing think tank community that every nation is kind of a part of. So obviously Latveria and Doctor Doom, well, not necessarily Doctor Doom, but Latveria exists in this world. And I think it's safe to say that Doctor Doom exists in this world as well. Now, how did Doom get his disfiguration? Does he have it in this? Hopefully. I mean, I hope they do a good job being pretty true to Doctor Doom's character. I hope that he has the mask most of the time. But it begs the question of, like, okay, why isn't he part of the Future Foundation? Why has he separated himself so much? And why is he not a villain at this point? Now, the answer might be, it is kind of villainous for him not to be part of the Future Foundation. He has set himself apart. Everybody else has agreed to work together, and he has not. And I think it makes sense that he is probably just biding his time. Much like Reed was talking about parallel Earths and multiverse in kind of his Mr. Fantastic Science program for kids, I think that Doom is doing that same research as well. And Doom, I think, probably is spending more time on that research than Reed has. Reed, because he's dealing with problems, is always trying to figure out a way to solve whatever the current problem is. Whereas I think Doctor Doom, and this has kind of always been my take for Doctor Doom in Doomsday, Doctor Doom is going to be not a villain in the classical sense of he's not causing these incursions. These incursions are occurring, they're happening. He might be accelerating that process, he might be messing with that process, but his goal is to save everybody. And I think, or not everybody, but to pick and choose who is saved. He's decided that the solution to the incursion problem that Reed is going to be against, that Doctor Strange might eventually come around to, is this idea that you can't save everybody. What's the solution? And a solution that makes the most sense. This actually ties into the Jonathan Hickman run, Time Runs Out, Avengers, New Avengers, where Valeria is researching all of this, trying to figure out how to stop the incursion. She's working on it separately from her father, because her father is also having to actively deal with the incursions that are happening, whereas she's spending time trying to really research and think everything through. And she passes along the note of, basically, you can't win. The trick is to figure out how not to lose. And that's where creating kind of a life raft to save everybody comes in. So I think that Doctor Doom, and he may eventually lead Doctor Strange to that spot as well. I don't think he will necessarily lead Reed to that spot. I think Reed is going to have to do it differently and at the last possible second. But I think the idea would be that Doctor Doom realizes that this isn't a winning situation. There's no way to win this, even if, or maybe he is trying to win it. Maybe he's like, if I can take every other universe down, we will be left with one, the one that I'm in, and I win. Like that, we win with that one. But I suspect that he knows that there's no winning no matter what. Like, he can't whittle it down to one because incursions are inevitable. So if you have two, they're going to have an incursion, they're going to be taken out. And so he is looking to save what he can, but of course save what he can with himself as a ruler and with him being judge, jury, and executioner in terms of deciding who is going to survive. But that's a big old tangent right there. So why is he now interested in Franklin? And does maybe that kick off everything? Is it a situation where he, at the start of Doomsday, kidnaps Franklin and potentially brings him to another universe? Or he brings him to Latveria and then to another universe? And that's why we have the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, is they're trying to track and follow Doom to where he's going next. I think it could be because he understands Franklin's powers. Now that Franklin has started to manifest his powers and use them, obviously there's this understanding that Franklin does have powers, but if Doom looks at it and goes, okay, Franklin could potentially have the same level of energy, level of power that Galactus has, how can I use that to then create Secret Wars, to create this battle world? I don't know that they're going to call it Battle World for the films, but in the comics it's called Battle World with all these different factions. I think it might just be called The Void, and that's where he's taking everybody, and maybe he's building and adding additional pieces on to the Void, but maybe Franklin can give him access to it or something like that. So I think that's why he has taken interest in Franklin. I think he knows that Franklin's power potential can help Doom reach his goal. And that could be kind of the trip up thing for Doom, much like it was for Thanos, is Thanos had his solution. His solution was the only solution he really saw as being viable. And I think Doom might understand that there are other solutions. There are other things that potentially Franklin could do, but it won't allow Doom to be in charge of everything. And so that might be, I hope that's kind of like the difference between the two. So, if I had to guess what we're going to see at the beginning of Doomsday, because this moment with Doom and Franklin, I don't think that's going to kick it off. I think we're going to pick up actually where the events of Thunderbolts start, and either the Fantastic Four are now on the run from Doom with Franklin, or, and I think it's more likely, Franklin has been kidnapped and Doom has taken him to another universe, and that universe is going to be that of the MCU. But obviously that's big speculation on my part. We'll talk about this more and kind of talk about this theory and other speculation around these end credit scenes and how the Fantastic Four First Steps is going to lead into Doomsday on the 10-Minute Marvel podcast. So let me know your thoughts on the post-credit scenes, please, in the comments. Obviously, this is a spoiler video, but try and limit the spoilers for the post-credit scenes, for in case somebody clicks on this and happens to see comments before realizing, oh, I shouldn't be here yet. And if you enjoy this content too, please give the video a thumbs up. Only one. Second click takes it away. But if you want to hear our full conversation on this, you can check out the 10-Minute Marvel podcast. We're going to be talking about this on Sunday night's episode. The Fantastic Four First Steps, review, thoughts, and where does it go from here. You can find the podcast here on YouTube. Click onto the channel, subscribe, and click that notification bell if you haven't already. We appreciate everybody who has subscribed and who has clicked and is checking out the videos. And then click on the podcast tab, or you can search for 10-Minute Marvel wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcasts from. But with that, we'll see you next time.